Hey, welcome back to the next video, and in this one we're going to be adding ammo to our weapons. So you'll have a clip of ammo, and then you'll also have some spare ammo. So what happens is when your clip runs out of ammo, you will load spare ammo into your gun and we'll play a reloading animation as well. And that's pretty much all we need to do. That's pretty much how it works in most games. So if we have extra time, we might go a little bit more complex, but yeah. So I've opened up my BP weapon blueprint. Remember, that's in blueprints weapons. And I'm going to start categorizing some of these variables as well. You remember we talked about categories earlier, so I'm just going to click on weapon name and put that in the category weapon info. And the amount of damage that the weapon does is also some weapon info. And now we need to add all of our ammo variables. Now the ammo variables are going to be a little bit more complex. We're going to do a bit of math to figure out the ammo stuff, but we're going to add the variable here, current ammo. And because you don't have half of a bullet, you can only have whole numbers as your ammo. We're going to select integer. Okay. And we want the current ammo to be replicated. The reason for this is because other players don't really need to know how much ammo is in the gun, I suppose. But then again, if a player was to kill us and take our gun, well, yeah, they do need to know how much ammo is in the gun. So that is important that other players know about that value so we need to mark it as replicated. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a variable called spare ammo. So spare ammo is the amount of ammo that you have spare that isn't currently in your magazine. So we're going to hit Control W, but before we do that, we'll click on current ammo and put it in the category ammo. And now we can hit Control W and we can call this one current spare ammo. And leave that as replicated. So now what we want to do is we want to add a couple of variables that control the amount of ammo the gun starts with. So this would be sort of similar to weapon information. Let's duplicate current spare ammo, and I'm going to call this starting spare ammo. So in other words, how much spare ammo does this gun start with? So when you pick the gun up, it might come with 100 spare bullets. So by default, let's say it defaults to 100, right? So you get 100 spare bullets when you pick up the gun. And then we'll also hit Control W again to duplicate and make one called starting clip ammo, although actually we'll call this clip size. So how big is the gun's magazine? And this does not need to be replicated. And this does not need to be replicated either. And generally that's because these values aren't going to change. So the clip size, the size of the gun's magazine, is not going to change. So generally we don't need to replicate that sort of thing. And starting spare ammo is the same. So we're going to say that by default you start with 100 spare rounds of ammo in your gun. And we'll also say that by default the size of a gun's magazine defaults to, let's say, 20 rounds. But once you spend the 20 rounds, you need to reload after that. Okay, so. Oh, one more thing. We'll also make a max ammo value. So this is the maximum amount of ammo you can get. So we're going to hit Control W again, and I'm going to call this max spare ammo. And let's say that by default you can carry a maximum of 300 bullets. So we won't let the player get more than 300 bullets, because otherwise that's just greedy. That's the max that they can have. Okay, so at that point we are ready to continue with the actual ammo logic. So let's do some really basic setup. In begin play we're going to set up some of these values. We want to set the current ammo, so hold Alt and drag in current ammo. And because this is a replicated value, we only want to change it on the server. So to do that, again, if you want to check on if you're on the server, just remember it has authority. So if we have authority, then set the current ammo in the gun equal to the size of our gun's clip, right? So set the current ammo in the magazine to the size of the magazine. So by default, the gun will have a full magazine of ammo when you pick it up. We also want to set the current spare ammo, so we're going to hold Alt, drag in current spare ammo, and we want to set this to the starting spare ammo. So this is now getting set up. On the server, we're going to set these values up, and because they're marked as replicated, everyone in the game, no matter where you're playing, will be able to see this information, how much ammo the gun has, and we'll display this on the screen as UI later on as well. Now later on we're going to be adding ammo pickups into the game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an event that allows us to add ammo to our weapon. Because we're doing all of this in the master class, all of the weapons in our game will also have this ability to have ammo and that sort of thing. So whatever you do in the master class, you just do it once, and then all of these children, like the scoped rifle and the assault rifle and any other rifles or whatever we add, they'll all have this as well. What we're going to do is we're going to right click and make a new custom event. The easiest way, by the way, is to type T and then a full stop and then just press enter. And that's a nice fast way to do it. Now we want to make a event to give ammo, so I'm going to call it give ammo. And we need to know how much ammo to add. So we're going to make a integer parameter, or an input is the easier way of referring to it. And I'm going to call this ammo to give. So this is the amount of ammo that we're giving into the weapon. And when you pick up ammo off the ground, this is what we'll be using to give it to the gun. Now, ammo is gameplay important. We would not want players to cheat on this, so we're going to make sure only the server has access to this sort of thing, so it has authority. And we're going to set the current ammo, so that's the amount of ammo in our magazine. And this is where things get a little bit tricky. So we want to either set the current ammo to whatever is smaller. The size of the clip minus the amount of ammo in the clip, or the amount of ammo that we're adding in. So bear with me here. We're going to take the clip size. We're going to take the amount of ammo currently in the clip, and we're going to subtract that to find out how much free space there is in the clip, in the gun's magazine. And then we're going to use the min node. The min node will tell us which number is smaller, this number or this number. So whatever number is smaller will be outputted through here. What we're going to do now is add that on to the current ammo. So current ammo plus the min will give us our new current ammo. So that'll handle putting ammo into our clip. But if there's any ammo left over, we need to add that to our spare ammo. So you'll forgive me that this is getting a little bit sort of mathy and a bit complicated here, but it's just how we have to do it to make it work. So, so far we've figured out how much free space we have left in our magazine, and then we either added the ammo to that completely or just added whatever ammo we had. Now if there's any ammo left over, so we're going to take this amount that we used, and we'll take the ammo we added away from this amount that we used. Let's move this down a bit. Okay, so we're going to use a negative, and then if there is ammo still remaining, and we can check that by saying greater than 0, so there must be some extra ammo that we can then put to our spare ammo stash. So we're going to use a branch, and if that is the case, if there is some ammo left over, then this will be true. There will be greater than 0 ammo remaining after we take that off. So what we're going to do now is add it onto our spare ammo. So we need to set the spare ammo, so hold Alt and drag in the current spare ammo and let go and connect that up. So now we need to figure out what this number is going to be after we've added the ammo onto it. It's going to be the spare ammo we already have plus whatever amount is left over. And to get the amount that's left over, we're going to use a min node, just like we did before. However, this time, we're going to take whatever is smaller. The amount left over, or the max amount of ammo we can hold, minus the amount of spare ammo we currently have. This is to stop our ammo from overflowing over the max amount that you're supposed to have. Because if we've set the gun as having only 300 ammo for the max amount, then if we didn't do this part here, then players would be able to pick up ammo and have, say, 310 bullets or 315 bullets. So we need to do that, and then just add that amount in and set it like that. So that will allow us to set players' ammo. I know it's a little bit complicated, there's definitely a lot going on. I'm also going to just delete these here because we don't use these. So let's do some commenting. I'm going to drag over my begin play stuff. On begin play, set up our ammo amounts. And here I'm going to select this and press C to make a comment. And I'm going to say an event to give ammo to the weapon when needed. Cool. Okay, so that's it. That's the give ammo out of the way. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take ammo off the gun when we shoot it. So to do this, we're going to add an event called, we could just do, I guess, on fired. So this event is called when the gun is fired. That would probably work. And we want to make sure that we're on the server as usual because, again, ammo is very important to gameplay and we don't want players to be able to cheat and give themselves ammo. So we need to make sure this is done on the server. We're going to take the current ammo that the player has by holding control, dragging it in. And we want to take the amount of ammo the player has and make that go down by 1. Okay, so we're going to decrement it. So to make it go down by 1, to take a bullet away from the player, type in decrement int and select that. And this will take some ammo off the player. 1 ammo to be precise. You can see here it says subtract 1 from the specified value. Now, we need to check if we now have emptied our magazine. If we fire our gun and then we take 1 ammo away from the player and they no longer have any ammo left in their magazine, now we need to trigger a reload. So this is where the reloading gets important. What we want to do is we want to check if current ammo is less than or equal to 0. If that's the case, then we know we need to reload. So we can use a branch to check if we are out of ammo in our magazine and we need to reload. Okay, so if we do need to reload, then this pin will execute. So, to reload, let's figure out how we're going to do this. Okay, so we need to take the current ammo and set it. So we're going to fill our clip back up with ammo. To do so, we're going to use another min node. You'll notice we're using min nodes a lot, but they're really handy to check if we have enough space left in our magazine for more ammo. So we'll connect that in there. And we're going to set it to whatever is lower. The amount of spare ammo that we have, or the size of the clip. This means that if I only have 20 bullets left, don't fully reload my clip, just put the remaining 20 bullets that I have into the clip. Say the clip's maybe 30, you know, you'd have some remaining. Now we need to connect this up. Okay, so now that we've added the ammo back into our clip, we need to subtract that number from the amount of spare ammo we have, because we've taken the spare ammo and we've put it into our clip. So we're going to hold Alt again and drag in current spare ammo. And we're going to set the current spare ammo to the current spare ammo minus the amount that we just put into our gun. And I think in rare cases it can go negative, which is a bit odd. So what I'll do is I'll just type in max and connect that up. So that way our current spare ammo will either get set to 0, or if this number is negative for some reason, it won't matter because 0 will be bigger and it will use that number instead. Okay, that's all that we have for now. That's all of the ammo stuff out of the way. I'm sorry, I know that's like quite, you know, confusing stuff, but we do need to do it. We need to get that out of the way. Now, one thing that we want to do is we want the character to play a reloading animation when they reload. And this is kind of a hard thing to do. I need to think about how we're going to do this. I think the best route is going to be to add an event in our player. So when we spawn this weapon, we need to know who's holding the weapon, aka who is the owner of the weapon. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and type get owner, and that will get the owner of this weapon. From there, we can check if the owner is a character by using our special cast node that we've used before. And we need to store the person owning the gun. So just like in the character, we store our current weapon. Well, in the weapon, we're going to store the current character that's holding us. So to do that, I'm going to right click on this and click promote to variable, and that'll just make a new variable and set it using this thing here. So I'm going to call this current owner. And we may as well replicate that as well. Okay, so now we know who's holding the gun. So if you need to do a reload, let's make an event separate just for our reloading, just to clean things up a little bit. I'm going to call this event reload. So if our ammo is less than or equal to 0, then we need to reload. So just type in reload. This just makes things a little bit cleaner. It's not going to get so messy this way. And we're now doing the reloading part up here instead. So let's go ahead and connect reload up to that. So we're going to set the amount of ammo the player has. What we want to do is also play an animation, a reloading animation. If we go into Anim Starter Pack, there's actually a reloading asset in here. You can see it's called Reload Rifle Hip. So if I right click on that and make a animation montage out of it, I'm going to call this reload montage. So just like we have a shooting montage, we now have a reloading montage. And we're going to save that. And I'm going to hit Control W to duplicate it. And I'm going to call this reload first person montage, because we need one for first person and for third person, and we need to retarget this as well because this animation is for the third person character. So if we click and go to retarget and click on duplicate and then uncheck the show only compatible and then click on mannequin arms and just hit retarget. Okay. So here is our reload first person montage. We can open that up and you can see that our first person character now has a reloading animation. If we click this blueprint tab, I'm just going to sort of rush through this because this is still animation level stuff and I don't want to get too much into this. But if we click on Anim Graph, you can see it's going through this slot called arms. So if we go back to the animation and just click this drop down and select arms, I know that's a lot to take in, but we need to do that. And now this should work in the game. Okay, so I'm back and I had a short break. I've just gone into the character and we want to add a variable that stores whether or not we're reloading. So remember, we have variables that keep track of the weapon that we're currently holding, how much health we have left, who killed us. So variables are just storing values. And one of the values that we need to know is, are you currently reloading your gun or not? And that's really important. So if we go add variable and type in reloading with a question mark on the end, this is basically a value that's going to just say whether or not we're reloading. So with that in place, we can make sure it's replicated because other players do need to know whether or not we are reloading or not. And from there, we can go back to our weapon, and when the reload happens, all we need to do is take the owner of the weapon, so hold control and drag the owner in like this, and then just type reloading and click on set reloading, and we want to set reloading to true. We want to say, hey, you are reloading. And also, we're going to, again, we've used this a lot. Instead of going replicated, we're actually going to go rep notify, because I want to do some special stuff when it does replicate. I know I say that every time, special stuff, but it just means that when it does replicate back to the player, we can do some things. Because we're on the server right now, and when we set this value, we need to tell the player on their screen that they're reloading in some way, and that's why we need this notify. So we'll save that. So, okay, we've set the player as reloading. We need to give them a bit of time for the reload animation to actually finish before we go ahead and give the ammo to them. So if I go into the first person reload animation and drag right to the end, you can see it lasts for about 2.1 seconds. So in the weapon, we're just going to use a delay. So drag out and type delay and just put in 2. So we're saying, tell the character they're reloading, wait 2 seconds for the reload animation to finish, and then when that's done, we can give the player the ammo from reloading. Okay, almost there. So let's go to on rep reloading, and what we want to do is we want to play a reloading animation. So how are we going to do this? Let's see here. So in on rep reloading, I'm going to take my first person arms, I'm going to drag them in, and what I want to do, right, is if I'm reloading, I want to animate the first person arms that I can see, but to other people, they want to see my actual 3D third person character doing the reload. So it's going to be a little bit complicated here, but not too bad. All we need to do is just check if it's us reloading or if we're looking at someone else reloading. And we can do that using this node called isLocallyControlled. This will tell us, are we on our own machine or are we looking at someone else reload? So we can use a branch to check this. So if it's us reloading, this pin is going to fire, and if it's someone else reloading, this is going to fire. Okay, so we need a way of playing a different animation depending on whether it's us or not. To do this, I'm going to go to the event graph and add a new event. So right click and type T and a dot to add a custom event. And I'm going to call this event, we'll call it play reload animation. And it needs one input because it needs to know whether or not it is the local player that's reloading. So in other words, is it us reloading or is it another player in the game reloading? And if we come into on rep reloading, all we actually need to do, we can delete this. We can just do play reload animation and just connect that in there. Okay, so we'll hit compile and save. And inside of play reload animation, all we need to do is check. Is it us reloading or is it someone else reloading? If it's us reloading, we're going to use montage or play montage. And in fact, if it's someone else reloading, we're going to do the exact same thing. But if it's us reloading, we're going to use the first person arms. And if it's someone else reloading, we're going to use the third person character. Just like that. So for the first person arms, hit the montage to play. And we need to select the reload first person montage. Make sure that you click on the second one. I know it's a bit specific, but make sure it's the second one. Make sure when you hover over it, it says path/game. And for the third person one, we just want to go reload montage. That's what we need to select there. So when we select as reloading, or so when we set reloading, sorry, it should do this animation now. But we need to check this in game as well. So all of this reloading stuff happens when we call the onFired event. So when we fire our gun, we're going to call this event. It's going to take ammo off us. If we have less than 0 or equal to 0 ammo, we're going to perform a reload. And a reload is just going to set us as reloading, which should play an animation as well. It's going to do a little bit of a delay, and then it's going to reload our gun by setting these values up. We also did earlier on, and this is going to help us later on, we've also got a function or an event that will give us ammo. This is going to be especially useful later on when we have ammo pickups in the game. We can use this and it's already set up, ready to use for us. So without further ado, let's do a little comment here. When we fire our gun, take ammo from the player and reload if necessary. And then we're going to select this and comment, reload the weapon and play animation. So that is pretty much it. I know that's a lot to think about there. But if we go back to our character, there's one last thing we need to do. So when we fire our gun, you can see the server fires the gun here. We just need to make sure that we call our new function. So what we do is we go to the weapons tab, drag our weapon in, and we need to call the onFired, like that. Just tell our weapon that it's been fired. One thing as well is we need to make sure that the weapon has ammo. If the weapon doesn't have any ammo, that's bad. We can't shoot it, right? So we're going to go back and you know what? We'll do one last thing. This is a new concept, but we really need this. We need to be able to check if the gun has ammo before we shoot it. I'm going to use something called a function here. Functions are exactly like events, but they can actually give you back a value. So events just have inputs, as you can see here. Functions have both inputs and outputs. If I click on add function, I'm going to call this has ammo. So this will tell us whether we have ammo in our gun to shoot. And to do this, we'll just drag in the ammo, current ammo, and we'll just say that it needs to be greater than 0 before we can shoot. If it's greater than 0, then that's fine, we'll be able to shoot. So click on has ammo, and as an output, has ammo. And this will just be a Boolean value. Also, to make this a bit easier to use, you can click on pure. This will just make sure it doesn't have this white pin when we use it, because we don't need one. So if we go into the firing part, where we fire the gun, where is that happening? So here in our input action fire, we're going to check that not only do we have a gun before we fire, but we also are now going to check, does the gun have ammo? So type has ammo, and then we can just simply use a branch to check whether we do have ammo or not. So has ammo is true. If we do have ammo, then you can fire the gun, no problems. Okay, so I know that's a lot to take in, but with that said, let's go ahead and test this out. I need to actually go into my weapons. I'm going to change the amount of ammo on the scoped rifle to be, let's go, so as you can see, starting spare ammo, clip size, etc. We're going to say the size of the clip is 5. So the scoped rifle only has 5 bullets in its clip. Okay, so mine didn't work straight away, and it was because I didn't have my clip size set to anything. It was set to 0, and same with my max spare ammo. So what I'd suggest you do is open up your assault rifle blueprint and just copy the values that I have here, and that way you can guarantee you've got all the same ammo settings as me, and you can just use that for testing just to make sure you have the same setup that I do. And one thing that we are also going to do is if we come into the character blueprint, which is in here, yours will look like this right now. When we go to fire our gun, check if it has ammo. One other thing we want to do is don't let the player fire their gun unless they've finished reloading. So take reloading, use a branch, and if we're not reloading, then fire the gun. One last glaring problem as well is that we never stop reloading. We set reloading to true, but then we never set it back when we're finished reloading. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but if we open up BP weapon, you can see that we set the players to be reloading, and then we just don't set it. So let's go back here, and when we're done, let's set reloading back to false. And we only want to set this, if we go into the rep notify on rep reloading, we only want to do it if we are now reloading. So if you're not reloading anymore, we don't want to play an animation for that. So go ahead and use a branch and just simply say that if we are reloading now, then play the reload animation. If we're no longer reloading, we don't have to play any animations or anything like that. So that should now be good. So let's go into the game and let's shoot our gun. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've set the amount of ammo in the clip as 5. So when I shoot now, notice that it reloads and it puts the gun back out. And I want to make sure this works on other machines as well. So let's go on a client and try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Reloads. Cool. So you can see our reload mechanic is working perfectly. This is really cool. I'm so happy this has worked on the first time. But yeah, as long as you followed everything perfectly, you should have a reloading mechanic just as I have done in this video. Yay! One quick side note is that you will not be able to see other players reloading, and this is a really simple fix. So if you go into the Anim starter pack and go down to the animation blueprint for our third person character and just open that up, just drag out. You might not have Anim Graph open, by the way. You'll have something like this maybe. Just click on Anim Graph, you'll see it at the top there, and open up the Anim Graph, and we just need to use something called a slot. So just type in slot, and now you should be able to see other players reload. And just to verify that, let's run over here and check it out. You can see other players reload as well as seeing reloading happen on your screen yourself. The reason this all works is because we replicate the reloading variable, so other players know if we're reloading or not, and they can animate accordingly thanks to the rep notify that we're using in there as well. So with that being said, that was another really hefty tutorial. I'm hoping that in some of these future tutorials we'll be able to ramp down the intensity a bit, because I know these can be really technical videos, and I don't blame you if you're finding them really hard to understand as a beginner. Just hang in there. You'll have a project that you can build on. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.